Hi, have you ever built something like this in Figma? A huge component set with thousands of component variants, just to be able to have all the properties you want this component to have? If you said no, I've never done it, you're either not that deep into Figma or you're not being very honest. Why this is because Figma requires us to enumerate all possible combinations of these properties and individually lay them out onto canvas. The problem with this approach is that it brings such a bloat to your design system assets, making them hard to scale and hard to maintain. There's actually a much better way to do this in Figma today that is literally hiding in the corners. Variables is Figma's answer that allows us to finally parameterize all of these component properties without visual enumeration. Now, let me show you what I mean in action. We have this button component right here that already have a property called prominence that I can switch between primary prominence and secondary prominence. And as you can see, it is built without any variance at all. How this is achieved, let me show you in Variable Visualizer. Here we have a variable collection that is named prominence. And when we are doing the switching here, what we are actually switching is just the mode of this prominence collection. By default, it is set to primary mode. And on primary mode, this blue color will take effect as its fill. Let's take a look. This is the blue fill, and the white color here will take effect as its text. So here is the text, and it has a white fill color to it. What happens when we set it to secondary prominence mode? So on secondary, what happens is that the white will take effect as this fill color, and it will have a stroke of black. So you see this white fill color and black stroke right here. On the text itself, what will take effect is the black color right here, the secondary. And we can follow the lines to see where these colors are coming from. They are coming from another collection that is named primitives. This is where I store my primitive colors and values. So currently I only have a blue color as the brand, a white color, and a black color. Super simple. So what else can we do to expand the amount of properties that we have on this button? So for example, I now want to add a size collection. So let's right click on the canvas and name this new collection size. Inside of here, I want to have 3 modes. So let's have the small and medium, and finally a large mode. So here the first variable will be a horizontal padding variable. And I want to also duplicate this one to have another variable called vertical padding variable. So with these 2 variables created, they don't have values yet. So I by default just have 1 vertical padding and 1 horizontal padding. I will now go ahead and name them medium. And for this one as well, I will name it medium. I will now create a duplication of this vertical padding medium called this large. Since the medium is 4, I will make the large 6. And I will make another duplication and make it small. So this will be, let's say, 2. And I will also duplicate to make another horizontal padding. Let's make a horizontal L. And let's make this 14. I will also make finally a horizontal S. Then by default, since the horizontal M is 12, let's make this as 10. So now let's make a filtering. Since we already have so many variables, it's getting overwhelming. So we click here to filter only the vertical paddings group, and let's now make the connection to our size. So let's push prominence away and let's make the size closer. M, we want to link the vertical padding M to M, L to L, and S to S. Now we want to filter to horizontal padding, and do the same, S to S, L to L, M to M. And as you do this, you will see in Figma that you have now a new collection created called the size, and you have just linked all of the values for your individual variable modes. And now that we have our horizontal padding and vertical padding logic in place, let's bind it to our button component. I will now drag the button component onto the plugin canvas, and let's expand the padding field. I will link the padding horizontal to the horizontal padding and the vertical padding to the padding vertical. So now if I expand, you see the linkage. By the way, what we have just done is called variable binding in Figma. We have just bound the horizontal padding variable to the horizontal padding field in Figma. We have just bound the vertical padding variable to the vertical padding field in Figma Auto Layout panel. And now we can test it out. So on the instance, let's switch the size from small to medium and then to large. You can see these values changing. So let's do it again. Medium, small, large. What I also want to do is I want to have the text size follow the size change. So in the size collection, I will also now create a font size variable. And this will have all its values originating from the primitive collection as well. So let's unfilter it, and let's call this font size small, and I want to make this, for example, 10, and let's duplicate this. Let's make this the M. Let's make it 12 font size, and let's make a final duplication. This will be the large one, and let's say 14. So let's now make a filter, and let's make the link. So we want the font size S to be the S, M to be M, L to be L. This is done. Now we want to utilize it. So we have our label layer here, and inside of typography we have the font size. This is how we bind a variable to the font size here. So now we have just bound the font size variable here to the font size field on the label, which is the text layer inside of the button. Let's test it out. If I go from large to small, you definitely realize that this text right here is getting smaller. It's now 10 of size. And now if I make it medium, let's check the size of the text. It's now 12. So this is also medium, 12 as 10 here. So what else can we do? Well, I can also add another collection. Let's call this disabled, and let's make this default mode false, and I will also make a true mode, and let's make just a variable here that is just called opacity, and I will have by default 100% opacity on true, which is disabled. I will decrease this opacity to 40%, and I will link this to the button opacity. So here is the button opacity. Bam. Now we should have a new property now called disabled. Now I can turn it to true and false. So you realize that now we have this disabled true. We also have this disabled true prominence primary. We also have this disabled true prominence primary size L without creating any variant crossing. In variants, you have to create all these permutations one by one. So when they cross like this, false with primary with large, true with primary with large, you gotta create individual one of these as its own component variant. Now that is what making it hard to maintain later on when you have more and more component variants to manage. Scalability and ease of maintenance being the first benefit you can get out of creating your component properties using variables. The second benefit is that you will have a shared system-wide token usage. What I mean is that if I now then create a input component, I can very comfortably just use the very same variables that we have just created. So now let's call this new component the input. Let's align it to the left and let's open the V. There you go. So we have now this input. We can just drag it on here. What we can use, I don't want the prominence to have anything to do with my input, but I do want to have the fill as the, let's say, white and black as the stroke. Then let's have a corner radius. I just have the default. I will also make the text inside. Let's say have a font size of here. Then I will also want to add the padding. Let's add the horizontal padding here and the vertical padding here. So now let's check it out. Now our input, let's instantiate it, should have the ability to switch between the size M and L. So let's actually increase the width a bit so you can see small, medium, large. Now let's also bind the disabled field to it. There is this opacity somewhere here. Okay, so now let's add it here. Now let's check it out. So we have this now new property coming through. This is the disabled state, this is the non-disabled state, and you have all of the crossings with the size. The other benefit that you will get out of this is that if you, let's say, use them together, and let's group these in a frame, we can actually apply the mutual properties on the parent. Let's say you both are large size, and sorry, I should have applied auto layout, and let's say you both are disabled. So as you can see, mutual properties when built with variables, it's able to cascade from parent to child, which is exactly how it works in code. If at any time your component instance leaves the parent that is disabling all of its children, it will get re-enabled. And as it enters back inside of the parent that is disabling its children, it will get re-disabled. This brings about a level of foolproof consistency where you don't really have to worry about, okay, do I choose this or this or this? No, none of that. It's just, it's
nice.
Same cannot be achieved if your properties are built using variants. Let's say on this input I have this state enabled, focused. I also have this on the button state enabled, focused. But if I choose two of my component instances together, I lose that control. If I select my parent, I also lose my controls, meaning you're gonna have to go in there and change each individual property to be the same for every single layer. This cascading effect is what I would like to call context awareness. So if this is a context that says large, anything that falls inside of it automatically knows to get the large version of itself, to assume the context, to fit into the context that it is a part of. Last but not least, you're also decoupling the styles from the structure. So your component defines what it is, while your variable mode tells how it looks. If you've made it this far, make sure to try out my new plugin Variable Visualizer. I know that working with Figma Variables can feel like walking through the dark forest, but with Variable Visualizer, hopefully you will feel like riding on a helicopter, seeing everything below clear as day. It's been Mr. Biscuit. If you want me to feel motivated sharing more contents on YouTube, please comment your thoughts down below. I would love to chat with you. That being said, have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.